Good morning, everybody. Morning. A little louder. I heard you, Matt. It is so good to see all of you here. Welcome to Palm Springs, and welcome to the 2019 iProspect Client Summit. Before I get into the heart of my remarks, I've got to start off with a few thank yous. So, first, to our clients. This is a client summit, and we are here because of you and for you, and to build on the relationships that we've established with you. And what's been great for me is that there are so many clients that have come back that have been to summits in the past. So Lucille, I'm sure you're sitting somewhere in the back because I know your MO. Nice to see you this morning. And I know that you've been a veteran of the summit. And Dave, it was great running into you yesterday afternoon by the registration desk. And I know you've had a little hiatus, but you've been sending your teams from Hollister, and now we've got Abercrombie folks here, so it was great to run into you. And Stephanie, seeing you last night, and this is year 2 for you, and you had so many folks from Adtalem here, it's great. And I know that you're coming because you get a lot out of the summit. Now, I could sit here and start naming everybody's names, but I'd be up here for about 2 hours. But it's just great to see so many people that are coming back. But this year, we've also got a lot of new folks that are here at the summit. So we've made a change in our structure. So now we have some additional agencies that are rolling up into iProspect and reporting into me. So M8, Digital Performance Agency with a focus on multicultural. Welcome to the family, and Fetch, Digital Performance Agency with a focus on mobile. You've got some clients here. So those clients that are new, I would encourage you to take a look around the room right now, because you are surrounded by the best digital marketers in the business, from our clients, our partners, and the iProspect staff. And I promise you, over the next 2 days, you are going to hear some fantastic content. We're going to learn a lot. We're going to do it together. And we are going to leave with some tangible things that we can start to do in our day-to-day business. But we've also got some clients that have had people from their teams here, but they're actually new to the summit. So Lou, hopefully you're sitting out here right now. We've had a lot of people from the bank coming to the summit, so it is great to get you here, and we're excited to have you on stage. And Ara, it was nice spending time with you last night. We're really looking forward to the fireside chat later this afternoon. And Tivity has been a longstanding client of Isobar and is new to the iProspect family, so we're really happy to have you here. And Armin's from Hilton, and we are here at a Hilton property. So not only is it great to have you here and the longstanding partnership that iProspect and Hilton have had together, but to be here at your property and share business back and forth is just fantastic. And we are really looking forward, I'm looking forward to hearing what you've got to say, since I've had a sneak peek at your content. But it's great to have you here, and Noha and the rest of the team. Now, we know, and I know, just how busy your schedules are. We know it. We live it with you every day. So the fact that you are here and you're making time is so important to all of us. And on behalf of myself, everyone that is here from iProspect, and everyone that is watching around the country, because we are broadcasting this live to the entire agency, all those folks that are back at the offices making sure that the trains are getting to the station on time, thank you for making time to be here with us. It means the world. To our partners, you will see their logos everywhere. This summit wouldn't be possible without you. And we thank you, and I thank you for supporting our clients. And they are just that. They are our clients. They are your clients as much as they are ours. And we are a performance marketing agency. And core in that is performance. And you deliver continually, and that's why you're here. So thank you for supporting our teams. Thank you for supporting our clients. And if anyone wants to talk to our partners, they have representatives here, and they will be participating in every facet of the summit. So we really appreciate your support. To the folks that have put together content, our clients that have put together content, our partners, iProspect staff, I know that you go above and beyond the call of duty putting together all of this content. And that's the most important thing in this summit. Yes, this is an amazing property. We are in great locations. We continue to find great locations around the country to have this. But the thing that makes the summit is the content. And how we can learn from each other and share with each other, that is the most important thing. So thank you for going above and beyond and putting together all of this content. And then finally, to my marketing team. Belle, Rach, Katie, Jocelyn, Gab, Andrea, you guys continue to reset the bar. And this team does not let any detail go untouched. They start working on this summit the day after the last summit finishes. They will start working on next year's summit probably by the end of this week. So team, you have done such a fantastic job, and I know everyone here appreciates it, so thank you. All right. That was a lot of thank yous. And in case you're wondering, no, I am not up here killing time. Any of you that know me know that I've got plenty to say, so I'm not up here killing time. But I wanted to say all of those thank yous because we're sincere about it. We mean it, and I mean it. And this isn't just, it's not just a summit. This is a celebration. It is a celebration of what we do and the space that we're in. And it means more to us than you could possibly know. And the fact that you're all here with us celebrating just means the world. My kids, my daughters, and hopefully my oldest is watching right now, so if you are, hi, am. They'll say to me, they'll say, Dad, do you like what you do? I'll go, no, I don't like it. I love it. I love the space that we are in because we are at the intersection of everything, of how things are changing, of how people communicate and build relationships and find information and transact and connect with each other and connect with brands. We are at the center of all of it. And I would argue that there is no more exciting industry than ours. And the thing is that we're all a part of it, every single one of us. Everything that we're doing each day is changing the way our industry works and the way people interact with each other. And it's having massive impacts, not just on commerce, but on society. And I think that is such an exciting thing to be a part of. And I feel so lucky to be part of that. Now, maybe some of you experience this like I do. Sometimes I get a little grief for what I do and the space that I'm in. You know, some people in my family will be like, oh, you're in advertising, and cast some dispersion around it. And in particular, my aunt, you know, she's a journalist. So she's always poking at me, especially when negative things happen in our space, like when YouTube had the brand safety issues or all of the challenges that Facebook has been facing. I mean, I get, when there's a negative headline about Facebook, I get it from her before I get it from any of the industry pubs that I subscribe to. It just shows up like immediately. She's like, see? But, you know, and she said to me, she's like, you have a responsibility. And she's right. We do have a responsibility. But I shared with her a story of how we recognize that responsibility. And I wanted to just take a moment to share that with you. So every year, iProspect, we're part of the Dentsu Aegis network, for those of you that didn't know. And every year we have an internal conference and we get together the top 1% of the organization from all of the agencies around the world. And we meet in a different part of the world. We go from Asia Pacific to EMEA to the Americas, and we rotate. And so last year, we were in Singapore, and we were at that crazy hotel with that man-made lake out in front of it. And we were getting ready for an event one night where we were taking a boat across the lake, going to an outdoor dinner. And I'm waiting for one of my colleagues, Jen Zimmerman. So Jen is the Chief Strategy Officer of McGarry Bowen. And Jen was also one of the chief architects in McGarry winning the business, with her and Gordon Bowen at the helm, winning the business from Ogilvy, where it had been for 47 years. 47 years, and they won the business. That's as long as I've been alive, so that's a lot. That's a long time. So it was a big deal, and this was a big deal decision. I mean, it went all the way up to Ken Chenault, who was at the helm of American Express at the time, and it was a decision by him and by the board to make this change. And so we're waiting for Jen. I'm sitting in the boat. Jen finally comes down. She gets down there, and I said to her, I was like, where were you? She's like, I was on a call. And I was like, oh, were you on a call with American Express? She said, not exactly. I was like, all right, so what were you doing? She's like, well, I was just on the phone with Mark Zuckerberg. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, so what were you and Mark, as if I know him, talking about? And this was right during the height of the Cambridge Analytica scandal. And Mark had called Ken, who was on the Facebook board, and asked for his advice. And Ken said, well, you need to talk to Gordon and Jen. And so I was like, all right, Jen, so what did you say to him? And she said, well, first, I told him that I wasn't a crisis communication expert. It's like, well, okay. And if you know Jen, Jen is never one, there's a handful of you in here who know Jen, she's never one to undersell herself. So the fact that she said that was kind of funny. And then I said to her, I was like, all right, Jen, so what did you say? And she said, well, I borrowed the line from Spider-Man. I was like, what did you say, Jen? She said, I told him with great power comes great responsibility. True story, and it gets even better. So she said this to him, and she said, you have a lot of power, you have a lot of influence, you touch millions upon millions of lives, and you've got to own this. You've got a responsibility to own it. And then she looked at me and she said, and she got a bit serious, and she's like, Jeremy, we all have a responsibility. We do. What we say and what we share and what we put together with you as our clients, we have a responsibility to own it because people listen and people take notice. So just as a side note, when I got back from Singapore, I was driving that weekend and I had CNBC on, and they were covering the scandal. And they had a soundbite from Mark. And he basically repeated that line. He said, we have a lot of power and a lot of influence, and we have a responsibility. And I'm just sitting in my car like fist pumping because there was Jen's words coming out of his mouth. So that was a good moment. But we do. We have a lot of responsibility. And we have a lot of responsibility because with that responsibility, there's so much opportunity. There's so much data, there's technology, and there is more capability. I mean, look around the room. There is so much capability, and we are at the tip of the spear. We are at that tip of the spear. And I believe now, and Tim Andre, who's our CEO, said this to us earlier this year, I believe now, with all that we've got, with all of the data, with all of the technology, with all of the capability, we can be the architects of our future. We can architect our future in a way that we never could have before. And I don't think that I could have said that to you 5 or 10 years ago. We're trying to evangelize the space back then and build credibility, but now it's here, and now we really can architect our future. And that is what's so exciting to me. So, as I was thinking about this concept of architecting our future, I was talking with a handful of my colleagues, some of my trusted colleagues, and we were debating, what are the ingredients, right? What are the ingredients to architect our future? And landed on 3 things. So the first is, and Nick Bryan says this, who's the CEO of our network in the Americas. He says that brands, we need to stop marketing, and brands need to matter. And I'm going to unpack what I mean by that in a minute. But the second thing is, and team, you're going to be rolling your eyes at me, I know, but this is the thing that I get most passionate about, which is we have to be brilliant at the basics. We have to be brilliant at the basics. So much of what we do and the execution behind it, I think often gets overlooked and discounted for its importance and the impact that it has. So we've got to be brilliant at the basics. That's the foundation. And then finally, Inara, we were talking a little bit about this last night at dinner. It is about storytelling. And what is the story that we want to tell? But also being open to letting that story evolve. And so I want to take a little time and unpack all 3 of these things for us, because I think that these are core to how we can architect our future. All right. So first, stop marketing and brands need to matter. So what does that mean? What do we mean by that? And what does it mean to matter? When we were debating this, one of the first things that we landed on was it is about experience. It's about experience. Now, whether you like it or not, and whether you think you have a product or a service that doesn't compete with this organization, at the end of the day, we are still all competing with Amazon. We are, because we are competing with that experience, that speed, that ease, the simplicity, and it just keeps getting better. So we're all competing with that, whether we're a B2B organization or a B2C organization, we are competing with that experience. Now, I would argue that we as an organization and all of you in the different verticals that you represent, we have made huge strides, and some verticals even more than others, but huge strides in building and creating better experiences and pulling people into our ecosystem and knowing them and making life a little bit easier and making it easier for them to transact and engage. But we've still got a lot to do, and we can never take our foot off the gas. We can never get complacent with experience because we've constantly got to be raising the bar. And a brand that matters focuses in on what that experience is like because it's so important. But it's not all about experience. There is an element, and this was a really interesting debate, about knowing your audience. Now, that's an obvious thing when you think about marketing and any form of marketing. Understand who your audience is, understand who your consumer is, so that you can connect with them and speak with them in a way that they want to be communicated with. That part isn't obvious. But what's really interesting, and the debate we were starting to have is, does your audience or do consumers have the answers? And I would argue that we don't always have the answers, but maybe we're poking and we're asking the right questions. Now, if you think about some of the most famous entrepreneurs and CEOs, a lot of them would say, I don't ask my audience, I don't ask people what they want. Everyone probably knows the quote from Henry Ford where he said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have told me they wanted faster horses. But that, I think, is the insight, because he innovated beyond that. He knew that that was impossible, but there was something else that was bigger and that was better. And then if you fast forward to today, Jeff Bezos has said, no one asked us to invent Amazon Prime, but everyone is sure happy that we did. And you're going to see some stats on Amazon when you go through one of the Insight Labs. But it's true. But again, he found attention and opportunity in the market that he could build on. And that still does come back to knowing and understanding your audience, and then making things easy and providing value at the end of the day. But the other thing is that to matter, you don't also have to innovate in the way that I think sometimes we normally attach the word innovation to something that's new and different. It can just be finding a white space, finding a tension point. Look at Dollar Shave Club. Now listen, I'm a Gillette loyalist. I love Gillette. They're my client. I think they make the best razors. I don't love them just because they're my client. All right, maybe a little. But they do make the best razors, and they work the best for me, and they give me the best shave. But, man, they're expensive. I mean, the 8-pack is like nearing $50. And here comes Dollar Shave Club. And I've tried their razors, and they're good, but they're not great. Same thing with Harry's. They're good, but they're not great. So the product's not there. But they found a tension point in that cost. And they capitalized on that. And listen, they don't have a better product, but they did make things easy by making it a subscription model. And then they disrupted the entire category. Now, they didn't invent a better razor. They certainly didn't invent subscriptions. They just took a formula and applied it to a category that had never seen it before. And then they became a brand that mattered. And then it forces everybody else in the category to start to think about things differently and to matter. And so that's what I mean by, not marketing, but being a brand that matters. If you have a great experience, if you can continue to build on that, if you can know your audience and not look to them for the answers, but look to them for the questions that they're asking and figure out how you can go beyond that and create something that's easy and provides value at the end of the day, you can be a brand that matters. And we've all got that opportunity in front of us. All right. So, brilliant at the basics. Like I said, this is an area that I get really passionate about, slightly geeky about, but it's so important to me because the space that we're in is so complex. And like I said before, and maybe not so much in this room, we don't discount the execution, but when you talk with others in our industry, or if you talk with other agencies, bigger media agencies or creative agencies, they're sometimes up here, and they can be a mile wide and an inch deep. And I never want to be that. I always want to be a mile deep because the execution is so difficult and it's so complex and it's constantly changing. And our partners that are here, Google and Microsoft and Pixability and BidTelect and Facebook and Verizon and all of you, I know that you're innovating and trying to ensure that it's easier for us to get campaigns from inception to launch. But every new innovation does create a new layer of complexity. And it's not that we don't want that. We love it. We invite it because every new innovation you make gives us the ability to build a deeper and better relationship with the target audience. But it's not easy. And if you get it wrong, the price can be pretty severe. Last year I stood up here and I talked about a retargeting example. This brand where I had bought some duffel bags and they retargeted me with the same duffel bags for 3 weeks. 3 weeks, it drove me crazy. Consequently, I've never shopped there again. But the thing is I know this brand, not just as a brand, but I know their marketing team. And they were a client, and they took the work in-house. And they're smart. They know what they're doing. But they just weren't paying attention to the execution. And they weren't following through, and they weren't doing it. So now they've lost me as a customer. And they've created a negative experience because something that is simple and something that they should have paid attention to, they didn't. Now, I'm smiling because everyone that's on my team, I know what you're going to be thinking when I start saying the next part, but every time we go into an existing client meeting or especially a new business pitch and we're talking about what we do, I push the team, talk about the structures of the campaigns, how you set up a paid social campaign and how you use all the data for targeting and how you set up a paid search campaign and what are the roles of each of the elements of the infrastructure. And why is it so important that we have a best practice where we only have a limited number of keyword phrases in an ad group? I can see the eye rolls through the lights, but it's true. It's so important because those phrases aren't just keyword phrases. They're questions. They're questions from our audience, whether it's somebody that knows us or it's somebody that's new. And we have to match up that question with the initial answer. And it's that one chance that we have to answer their question and say, I hear you, I get it, I've got information, come through my front door and spend some more time with me, and I'll give you more of exactly what it is that you need. And when you are brilliant at the basics, that's what you do. And of course, there's financial gains. Yeah, your quality score goes up, your cost per click goes down, you get more traffic, you're doing more with the same amount of money or less, and you get more revenue, and that's all great. But you're building a relationship, and you're at that tip of the spear. And so that's why being brilliant at the basics is so important. And when you are brilliant at the basics, that becomes the foundation for innovation. That becomes the foundation for everything. Because you can have the most brilliant strategy, but if you don't know how to turn it into something that's real, it's just words on a page. But if you do have that foundation in place, then you can innovate beyond your wildest dreams. And that's why that's the second ingredient and so important for us in terms of architecting our future. Now, the third is probably one that's the most fun, and it's around storytelling. So we do this soft skills training program. We call it consultative selling skills, where we get our senior team together, and we work on how we ask you as our clients those high-gain questions and start to learn and understand more about your business and provide tips and techniques on how we do that, and so that we're constantly striving to get better. And so this year, when we had the consultative selling skills program, they asked if I would come in and do a session about storytelling, which was great. It was fun, but it was also really hard. I'm like, how do you tell the stories? And I had to sit there and think about it. And it's not like they sometimes just magically appear, but you've got to kind of look through the detail and see what story is starting to form. And so I wanted to give you an example on that. Last week, we were meeting with an existing client, and we were pitching for a new service into that client. And the client knows that they need to evolve this service and it needs to get better. And so, of course, when we're looking at it and we're looking at all the opportunities, we found a lot of things that are wrong. And the team had done a great job of just pulling out all of this information and all of this stuff that we could change. And not only how it would help enhance that existing service, but how it would connect to the broader suite of things that we're already doing for this client today. And so they sent me the deck, and I'm taking a look at it. But the one thing that was kind of missing was the story around it. It had a lot of great tactical information, but the story around it was the piece that was missing. And it's hard. It's hard to see the forest through the trees when you're in it and when you're neck deep in all of this detail. And so I was sitting with the team and we're talking about it, and I just said to them, I was like, guys, here's the story that's missing. The piece that we need to highlight is the fact that right now, their digital presence is inconsistent. It's inconsistent. There's some parts of it that are saying exactly what they want to say and presenting themselves exactly how they want to be and providing that value to their audience. And there's other parts that aren't. And that can create confusion with the audience. It even, in some instances, was creating confusion with the platforms that they were on because they couldn't decipher the information properly. And then we look to quantify that, of what's the price of inconsistency? And how much traffic were they missing out on? And how much revenue did that translate into? And how could that present and deliver a long-term value relationship with that audience? And so we quantified that. And it wasn't just the price of inconsistency, but it was actually the opportunity that sits in front of them. And that was the piece that was so exciting. And I think that we always just need to be thinking about that. What is the story that we're looking to tell? And what is the end result that we're looking to deliver? Now, the obvious end result is always around, I want to grow the business. But there's even more than that. You know, when we've got that consistency and we're telling that story, and we connect all of the dots together, that's when we matter, that's when we're being brilliant at the basics, and that's when the story starts to unfold in the way that we want it to. But the other thing that I learned about the storytelling, and this piece was really interesting to me, and I want to share two different examples with you, because it's about having, as I said before, an openness. An openness to letting that story evolve in a way that maybe you didn't necessarily imagine. Now, first example is actually from our keynote speaker, from Guy Raz, and I'm going to get into a little bit about Guy and why we asked him to be here with us in a few minutes. But when Guy and I were on the phone a few weeks ago, we were talking about his opening and what this audience was like and what I was hoping he could share with all of you. He was talking to me about one of the interviews that he did with the founders of Method, and how they found an opportunity in the market and something that the audience was interested in, and how they could innovate around that. And so that was great, and they built this great business, and then they've sold it, obviously. But the thing that Guy said to me, Guy, if you're backstage, I hope I'm not stealing any of your thunder, but the thing that Guy said to me was that, Clorox could have done this. They could have done it. But they didn't. Now, maybe they made a conscious decision to not do it. Maybe they just didn't want the story to evolve in the way that it could have. But then, their products got disrupted. And I think that ability to let your story evolve and be able to pivot, that's crucial. You have to be able to put the story together, but then you have to also sometimes let it take a different turn. Bowen. Gordon's the founder of McGarry Bowen. But prior to founding McGarry Bowen, he worked at Ogilvy, and he worked on the American Express business. And Gordon was the architect of Membership Has Its Privileges. He was working with American Express back in the day when their focus was bringing in as many cardholders as possible. It was acquisition, acquisition, acquisition. That's all they were doing, was bringing in more and more and more. But they were losing more than they were gaining. And they were bonusing the people that were bringing in all these new cardholders huge amounts of money. But their organization was suffering and it was struggling. And so as he learned more about the organization, as he started to understand, he crafted the organizing idea around membership and the privilege that you have of being a member and what comes along with that. And that became an ethos that defined that entire organization. I mean, we all know that line. And then they grew, and they changed, and they evolved. But the reason that they made the change and left Ogilvy and went to McGarry Bowen was because Gordon knew that now the story needed to change and it needed to evolve. And so when I saw him this year, he had presented earlier in the day and he talked about the win and what it took to get that win. But I saw him at dinner and I said, Gordon, you crafted membership has its privileges and now you've kind of, lack of a better way to say it, you sort of blew it up. I said, how did that make you feel? And he said to me, Jeremy, it was time. It was time for the story to evolve. It needed to do something different. We needed to pay attention, not only what was going on in the vertical, but what was going on in the world around us. And now the focus is don't live without it. And it's about being inclusive and bringing everyone into the fold and not having something that's exclusive. And he wanted that story to evolve. And he said that ability to be able to let the story evolve and not resist it, but accept it and bring it in, that's what's going to allow you to be successful. That's what's going to allow them to be successful. And then he looked at me dead in the eye and he said, and that's what's going to allow you to be successful too. You've got to let that story evolve. So those, I believe, are the three core ingredients to being that architect of our future. Having a brand that matters, being brilliant at the basics, and being able to tell a story, but also let that story evolve and be what you want it to be. And that's how we'll be at the tip of the spear, and that's how we can architect what our future looks like. And so that leads me to our keynote speaker, Guy Raz. So for those of you that don't know Guy Raz, he hosts a variety of different podcasts, but the one that's probably the most popular is called How I Built This. I'm sure there are some fans in the room, and he interviews entrepreneurs that have launched companies that have touched all of us. All of us. And he has this extraordinary capability to create a safe environment where these business leaders tell their story in a way that's unique and it's different and it's transparent and it's really genuine. And every story doesn't always have a happy ending either. That's the other interesting piece. There's some where the story is continuing to go on. There's others where the businesses have been sold, sometimes without the founders wanting them to be sold. There's a variety of different stories, but there's always this air of intrigue and finding something different in the market and a problem that needs to be solved, and humility. And luck. He always asks that, how much of it was luck. But at the end of the day, there are so many lessons that we can learn. And that's some of the stuff that Guy's going to be sharing with us. Now, if you're not a fan of the show or if you haven't listened to it, I'm a big fan of the show if you couldn't tell. But if you are not a fan of the show and you haven't listened to it, definitely listen. And my favorite is the Howard Schultz story, and when he talks about Starbucks and how he launched Starbucks. And I won't give it away, but the middle part of the story is just absolutely amazing. So take a listen to that, but honestly, any of them are really great, and they're great to listen to. I hate when this ends, but I hate when it ends because I just, it's like I said, I love what we do. I love being able to work with all of you. It is exciting, and it really is, for me, it's such a privilege. It's such a privilege to lead this agency and all of the people that are a part of it. It's such a privilege to have earned your business, to have you here with us, to spend time with us, to work, to learn, to share, and to really continue to push this industry forward. it's just such a privilege for me to be able to stand up in front of you and share that. So, thank you.